everyone kind of has this idea that they're the only ones, either the only ones dealing with it, which of course is not the case, but then people also feel like they're the only ones who feel this way about it. So that's what I hear a lot is like, I shouldn't be so upset. I shouldn't be so stressed. Why am I so affected by my dog's behavior? Because many people in their lives are, coming at it like, it's just a dog. What's the big deal? Calm down. So not only is there this judgment of, I shouldn't be so upset, but other people reinforce that too, a lot of the time.
Welcome to MythBarkers, where we make dog parenting easier by sniffing out the facts and debunking dog tales. We've talked to various dog trainers and have learned so much about how to better understand our dogs and set them up for success. But what about helping and supporting ourselves as we strive to be the best dog parents that we can be? It's not often talked about, but being a dog parent can take you a lifelong emotional journey, from the anticipation and excitement of bringing a new dog home to the pride you feel as they learn and grow, to the sadness, grief, and heartbreak you experience when they leave you. So many big feelings. But what about the emotional toll that comes from the more everyday experiences, especially for those pet parents who have complex and challenging dogs?
Today, we have a licensed professional counselor who specializes in working with dog parents and dog professionals as they navigate the emotional side of life with complex dogs. Inspired by a difficult and emotional journey she experienced herself adopting her own rescue dog, our guest today wanted to help bridge the gap between human well-being and animal care. Now with over 10,000 followers on Instagram alone, she helps dog parents work through the emotional toll of complex dog behaviors, chronic health issues, rehoming, behavioral euthanasia, grief, guilt, uncertainty with everything that comes from those decisions, and advocating for complex dogs, among other things. We're so excited for today's guest. Please join us in welcoming Jess Adam to MythBarkers. Hi,
Thanks for
Jess.
having me. Hi.
Thank you for coming to our episode. We're so excited. We have so many questions. There are so many benefits of having a dog. For example, dogs lower anxiety, depression, blood pressure. And this has been proven in multiple studies. Therapy dogs improve literacy engagement, emotional regulation, and stress markers in children with autism or Down syndrome. Outside of this, we know ourselves how many benefits dogs can have on various aspects of our lives. But I also think that as pet parents, especially parents to reactive dogs, there are things that are sort of unspoken, hush hush struggles that happen in the home, in the solitude of our own anxious spaces. So I'm really, really excited to speak to you about some of these areas.
Sometimes that shows up on the sidewalk too while you're working through a really rough moment with your dog. So it's not always behind closed doors.
This is true.
Yes, the crying on the sidewalk club, I always call it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
I already feel seen.
Jess, so tell us what inspired you to start Handlers and Humans?
So in one word, Dio, my dog, is who inspired me to create this space, create this service, create this support. As you mentioned, we are still in many ways, right, on the roller coaster of complex dog life. Looks different now, but early on, I really was flatlined sometimes by the emotional impact he had on me, his behavior had on me. I was not prepared for it, despite being a therapist. I mean, I was a new therapist when I adopted him, and I just was not coping well with what it was like to navigate his behavioral challenges. Part of that was because I was completely unprepared for a dog in general, let alone a dog with some complexities and all of that. So part of it was my own, lack of understanding of dogs on the whole. But I had really high expectations for us. I really wanted a therapy dog, right? I had all of these dreams and visions, and it was really, really hard to have him come into my life with all of these hopes and dreams and not have them necessarily pan out the way that I wanted them to. First of all, so there was grief there, but even in just like the day-to-day ups and downs of like, we had a really great walk, we had a really awful walk, we had the neighbor give us a dirty look, we had, my grandmother say something judgmental about him. Like, you just go on, and it really, really took a lot out of me. And obviously, I worked with so many trainers throughout those early years. And a lot of them started saying to me, I really wish I could send my clients to you for therapy about this because, they're all struggling too. And this was 2014 through 2017, 18, right? So the social media discussion that exists now about the well-being of the human side of the leash was not a thing at that time. So I started to think, maybe my trainers can send their clients to me, and maybe I can develop something for other people like me.
So, what help did you personally have or seek out when working with Dio? Because
Mhm.
I feel like I experienced the same thing where, we had this sort of mandatory onboarding process where we worked with animal behaviors to make sure that we are introducing him to a new space. But that was very much the tip of the iceberg in terms of the work that we needed to do with and for Luke. So, what are some of the areas that you have explored in order to navigate this space?
I feel like I did all of the things. Um, I mean, I'm sure I didn't, right? But it felt that way. I definitely did
Yeah.
all of the things that were accessible to me at the
Mm.
time, right? So anything from like our general vet, working with them, finding a canine acupuncture, canine a nutritionist. He went to a chiropractor a couple of times. We
Wow.
did. He had he got a little adjustment in his hind end a couple of times when he was younger, and we did obviously group and individual training, right? And socialization work, like socialization clubs and classes and things like that. And I will say something I'm very, very proud of is that we did pass the therapy dog evaluations and we did pass the canine good citizen test.
Wow.
Um, it took years. Let's be let's be very clear about that. And he still is not suited for that work, and I still didn't have a therapy dog on my hands, right? Despite passing those tests. So we did a lot of work to get to that, and then it was after passing those things that he showed me that it was not going to be a job for him. So yeah, I mean, when I think back, there was a lot of different things that I explored. But again, there was not someone out there for me to talk to about me. I had wonderful trainers. I'm still friends with many of them to this day. One of them I fully credit for the fact that I kept Dio in general. Like, I don't know that I would have kept him. I probably would have returned him. I very seriously considered returning him to the rescue at certain points. Um, so she's a dear friend now, and I'm super grateful to her. And so she was, of course, very emotionally supportive of me, but she still was trying to deal with him and me at the same time, which I'm sure, and as I've worked with so many trainers now, that's a lot to balance. So although I explored a lot of different things to help him, I was not focusing on myself.
I think it's beautiful that you pointed this friend out because it was probably like one of the first times that you felt seen as the pet parent going through all of these tests, hurdles, trials, and trying to figure out what is best for Dio. And I think that in itself is really powerful because you can feel so isolated in this space.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think one of the things that I hear the most is everyone kind of has this idea that they're the only ones, either the only ones dealing with it, which of course is not the case, but then people also feel like they're the only ones who feel this way about it,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I hear a lot is like, I shouldn't be so upset. I shouldn't be so stressed. Why am I so affected by my dog's behavior? Because many people in their lives are, coming at it like, it's just a dog. What's the big deal? Like, calm down about it, right? So not only is there this judgment of, I shouldn't be so upset, but other people reinforce that too, a lot of the time.
I love that you said that too, because that's one of the myths that we wanted to kind of bust head on today is having a dog should be easy. All these
Mm.
shoulds that we put on ourselves. Getting to talk to you, we're so excited because from a therapist perspective, like, why do you think people feel this way? That why do you think this isn't talked about more or wasn't talked about before you started Handlers and Humans?
I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. One is a core belief system, right, in different cultures, different societies, like of how we view dogs and their role, which I think has very much changed over the years. And, there are still many people who feel that, dogs are property. And then there are people who are like, no, dogs are part of my family. And then there are also people who are like, dogs have a job and a purpose in my life, right? So there's all of these different expectations of the role of dogs in our lives. And so I think that it's almost newer in a way to not only be including dogs in our families and considering them to be part of our families in the ways that we do now, let alone talking about how much they then impact us because they are a part of our family, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of different reasons. One being stigma, another just being sort of like the landscape of how we've interacted with and viewed dogs over the years has been changing and shifting. But when I think about this and talk about this with, especially with dog professionals, but also with guardians, if we consider our dogs to be part of our family, which I know many, many, many people do, we look at it from like a family systems therapy lens, then that means that everyone in the family system impacts one another.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's like kind of where my head goes with it, where, you know, if one part of that family system is struggling or, you know, there's some part of that family system that needs support, then the entire family system is impacted by that. So how could you not be impacted by your dog if your dog is struggling? Right? If they are part of your family. And then, you know, also your dog is impacted by you as well as part of that family system. So it's this interconnected relationship that we have. And I think that is a newer conversation.
I love that you use the word interconnectedness because it emphasizes that while we are looking after the dogs, we also have to regulate our own nervous systems because if we are nervous, it impacts them. It impacts the people around us as well. So it really is a very cyclical and very heavy effect on every member of this family. And in a cathartic way, it's kind of beautiful that we cry on the street and that we do all these things because if we didn't care about our family member, we simply wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Nor would we be putting that kind of mental, emotional, and spiritual energy into ensuring that everyone in this family is happy and settled, or we're making the effort to ensure that that peace is, it's, you know, what we're striving towards.
Right. Right, exactly. I think something that I wanted to highlight there is it's like a caveat I feel like I always have to insert because I think that there is often this messaging, and I'm sure you've both heard it or seen it, that, you know, okay, your dog responds to your emotions. And of course they do. How could they not, right? Like we're, again, that interconnectedness. Of course, I spend more time with my dog than anyone else even my children and husband. So of course he reads my emotions and I for him, right? But sometimes that's sort of put out there also in this blaming way where people will kind of get the message that if you just weren't anxious anymore, or if you just were more confident, or whatever the case might be, your dog wouldn't be reactive anymore, or they wouldn't be having these behaviors. And that I feel like I always, always, always want to speak to that messaging because first of all, it leaves out completely, well, what am I to do about it then, right? Like, how do I work on this? And there's not a lot of answers to that, but also it can really make dog parents feel so responsible for something that they are not necessarily 100% responsible for. Of course,
Absolutely.
we are a piece of that puzzle. Of course, we impact each other. But also, my dog had parvo before I got him, and he was isolated for the first like 3 months of his life. Well, more than that, actually. And I had no idea what impact that would have on his development and his socialization and his anxiety and fear reactivity, right? I didn't cause that. Right.
Yeah.
So me just getting unanxious, me just working through my anxiety was not going to be necessarily enough to quote unquote fix him. But there is a lot of messaging out there around that. And I think dog parents can get really stuck on that. And I just want to like throw out there that it's so multifaceted for us, for them. And we are all a part of it, just like we're all a part of that family system impacting each other. But it's a bigger picture than just one individual thing.
Can I tack on something to that? Because I love what you shared.
Absolutely.
The idea that also we're not fixing our dogs. There's nothing wrong with them. If they're struggling, they're having a hard time, and we need to be there to help them. And the first step, I believe, to that is being aware of what's going on and understanding why. So I love that empathetic lens that you're talking about in terms of the family dynamic and working with each other and not placing the blame. there's only so much we can control when it comes to our dogs. How do you help other parents navigate working with challenging and complex dogs and understanding what they can and can't control, not blaming each other? Like, how do you guide people in terms of that?
That is so tough, I think, for all of us who have this experience, right? Because we care so deeply about our dogs that we want to be able to control everything for them. We want to be able to control the environment and their stress and what they go through, and to some degree we have some control over things, and then we obviously have no control over others. And that's of course just a reflection of how life is, right? So I feel like our dogs are very much like helping us build this skill and sort of muscle on accepting what we can't control and working on the things that we can in many arenas, not just with them. So I actually like to have that conversation about how do you already navigate and cope with things that are out of your control in other areas of your life, and how can you apply that to life with your dog. But I honestly often have dog parents really go through an exercise to name those things. I have a whole worksheet on it, actually. So we go through like, what do you have control over? What do you have influence over? And then what do you have no control over, right? And that comes from the circles of influence. I didn't create that. That's the framework that's out there that I kind of utilize in this space. And just naming those things can be really helpful and powerful, because what happens when we get really stuck on things that we can't control is we need something to redirect our sort of energy to, right? So we can say, okay, I don't have control over these pieces, so let me take this frustration and take this like desire to do something for my dog or for myself or for both of us, and identify the things that I can do and take action there, right? It's really empowering to take action in the spaces where we can. So that's kind of the work that I try to help folks do, is to say, okay, we can practice acceptance, and that's really important. And how can we empower ourselves with action around the areas that we can influence or control?
That's such an honest approach too, because to say that things can be fixed or things can be controlled, I think, as you said, we can't really say that in a holistic level. We have to really look at like, what is the history? What are the traumas that we had we cannot change, that the dog has already experienced? And I think identifying those things separately and letting go of what we can't control actually really empowers us to look at what we can, because then we can shoot our energy there and be a little bit more effective. And by doing those aspects, feel less helpless.
Exactly. There's a lot less stuckness, right? When
Yeah.
you can say, all right, well, I recognize the pieces that I can't influence or control, but I'm going to go ahead and take that action towards the things that I can. I'm going to do something about this. And that can be a really big boost, right, for many people, because it is really easy to feel helpless and stuck when you have a dog who's struggling so much. And, there are a lot of things in your environment you can't necessarily do anything about, right? I work with a lot of dog parents who live in situations like, I can't change the fact that we live in an apartment building in Manhattan, right? And there's a dog in every elevator. Like, there's a lot of different external things. But what we can do is list the pieces that we are working on and, again, put our energy there.
That is already so helpful.
I'm so glad.
So you've been building handlers and humans for a few years now. When did you notice what you're doing really resonated with other dog parents?
The answer to this is actually, I think, kind of funny, because it's literally from moment one, and I will tell you why. And it is the thing that has kept me going through, I only have 500 followers and no one's responding to my posts, like all the way up till now, right? So I had this idea to create this service and create this support for several years before I actually did it. I think, like many of us, we dismiss the dreams that we have sometimes, and there's many reasons for that. But I used to think like, this is a weird idea. No one's gonna resonate with this. Like, this is not something anyone's gonna want or be interested in. But of course, like anything that you're passionate about, couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I decided, finally, I got like annoyed at myself for just thinking about it for so long. And I decided I was going to give a 1-hour talk for free to reactive dog guardians. There's like several very large Facebook groups that I got permission to advertise this in. And I was like, if no one comes to this, then I'm right and I shouldn't do it, and forget it. right? But I'm going to just try this thing and see what happens. And so I did 2 posts in these 2 reactive dog Facebook groups. And I just said, I'm just going to give a talk on this. I'm a therapist. I have a reactive dog, and I want to give you some coping skills that I've used with my dog. And immediately, like 150 people signed up for this talk.
Wow.
Handles and Humans didn't exist as a brand or whatever at this point. I had nothing at all following up with this. I wasn't offering a program. I didn't have a social media presence at all. This was like my personal Facebook page that like did this. And I was like, all right, okay, interesting information. And then I gave that talk, and then I did end up offering like a support group essentially for a couple of weeks where I did some deeper dive lecturing on some of the topics that I even still teach to this day. And we had like a weekly group support meeting that I facilitated, plus these lessons. And from that talk, like I think 6 or 7 people immediately signed up for that. And I was like, all right. So then that was where I actually made an Instagram account and actually thought of a name and all of that. So that was when I realized it. And again, it has been the moment that I go back to over and over and over again doing this work. Like it is the thing that just reminds me of how much I needed that. I mean, I would have signed up for that talk if I had seen it somewhere on social media, when I was really in the thick of it with him. So it was the first sort of moment before Handlers and Humans actually became what it is now.
I love this story.
Thanks. Yeah, I was shocked. But now, like having spoken to so many dog guardians, now I know I really do see why that was the response.
It makes a lot of sense though, because a lot of people are adopting, and these dogs come from like millions of different types of situations and traumas. And I mean, no one's equipped to really deal with that initially. And I think the support for the people can make it seem a lot less overwhelming. And especially if there's a support group and a community where everyone's sharing what they're going through and, ensuring that you're not alone, that this is a process, it's not going to happen overnight. There's a really, really powerful feeling in that and encouragement in that space. So I feel like it's only going to get bigger, because I know that if people know about this, they're going to swarm. But it's like, it's one of those things like you have to be introduced to it before you're like, bang, like it makes perfect sense that that a licensed therapist is talking about the toll of this process.
It has actually inspired me to go back. I'm going back to school right now too for a veterinary social work postgraduate certificate. I'm not a social worker, I'm a counselor, but this program allows other mental health professionals in, which is really incredible. So even in studying all those extra pieces, because veterinary social work is an incredible field and they do amazing work. And so getting these other perspectives is now like rounding out what I already have been bringing to. I don't know. It's just making me so excited to like grow and expand and hopefully continue to offer more things to people.
And the impact that Dio has had in like your life trajectory. I'm just thinking about this. I'm like, wow. Like, I know. Truly the inspirational fork in the road.
It's so true. It's so true. I know. We had our 11th gotcha day this weekend. It was it was a couple days ago. Yeah, 3 days ago. Brought him home. Thank you. And since starting Handlers and Humans, that we have a gotcha day moment, I'm like, you created this essentially, right? This is for us and now for other people. And my post to him on that day was, if I could say one thing to him that I know he would understand, other than do you want a treat? Because I know he understands that. It would just be thank you. Like if I could convey that to him, and that's not even just for Handlers and Humans. That's just for like what he's been in my life, which I could cry. So we won't go there. But
it's just like so much more wholesome when every step has been so difficult. Every threshold, every accomplishment just is amplified by 1,000%. Yeah. Like it just feels so gratifying and so beautiful to have overcome things. So, oh man, I mean, I think these will be happy tears for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. Somebody commented on a post I made the other day how I wanted Dio to be a therapy dog, and that he let me know very clearly that was not a thing he was interested in doing. So he's not a therapy dog, right? And I was telling this story on Instagram, and someone commented that like they would argue that he did become a therapy dog, but to like all of the people that like now follow our story, and I lost it. I was like, I just never looked at it that way, because I always looked at it like, well, he's always been my therapy dog, so that is
Yeah.
good enough for me, and I appreciate him for that. Like he has absorbed a lot because of my own journey in life, right? But this person just really pointed out this like beautiful sentiment that he did become one in the way that he inspired like what we're doing. And I want to frame that comment out and just like put it up on the wall.
That
That's
is
so
such a
beautiful.
beautiful perspective, and it's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So with MythBarkers, we want to help make pet parenting easier. We want everyone who's following along to, be able to benefit from our learnings, from our shared expertise. What are some tools that people, maybe if someone's listening or watching this right now, they're struggling themselves, right? How do you initially start to work with people, or are there any tools or suggestions to help them with their mindset and their approach to handling their dog?
Yeah, so I really start off every coaching relationship that I have, and also my course is based on this. And it's these areas that I've noticed over the couple of years of doing this, that if we kind of target these four things, that those are the areas that really are the biggest sticking points for people. I'll kind of go through each of one of them in a second, but I love for people to almost assess themselves to see like where are their strengths, first of all, and how can they apply their innate personal strengths to life with their dog, right? So are you a really curious person? So, maybe doing a deep dive in research is really important to you, and is a strength you could bring. Maybe you're a really creative person and you can make meaning out of the process that you're going through with your dog as a way to cope with it, right? So I really love for people to identify what is it about you specifically that you can bring to this relationship with your dog. And then I have people kind of go through these four areas and say, okay, what are the ones that are like my biggest challenges, and what are the ones that I'm doing kind of okay with? And the themes, and it kind of, again, it comes from the themes that I see most frequently, right? So conveniently, I've put it into an acronym that
Okay.
kind of represents my program. So the acronym is COPE, and my program is Coping with Canines. So that's kind of how that all comes together. I love a wordplay
Love it.
situation. So initially, the first piece is kind of that calm and care coping skill stuff, right? So the literal just regulation of your nervous system in the moment, right? Your dog is reacting. How are you taking care of yourself in that moment? Are you taking deep breaths? Are you practicing some mindfulness? Are you doing some progressive muscle relaxation? How are you grounding yourself before, during, after challenging moments with your dog or engaging with your dog? So it's kind of those coping skill pieces are the first area. And some people are like, I have that down. I'm good with those. I've got a strong sense of that. And some people are like, no, I really also lose it alongside my dog. I need some stuff to practice, right? And then the next piece is observing your outlook. So that's the mindset work. That's the self-talk work to identify like, what messages are you kind of sending to yourself? What are the parts of you saying about life with your dog? Is the internal self-talk that you're having really judgmental? Is it supportive? Is it helpful? Is it accurate? Is it fair? Right? All of those things. So really looking and bringing some awareness to the way we talk to ourselves about our relationships with our dogs, the incidents that we sometimes have with them, all of those pieces. And that's kind of where, like you had mentioned, the shoulds before, right? So we want to
Yeah.
look at some of the cognitive distortions that come up there, and should is a big one. Where are you saying to yourself, you should be doing this better, or my dog should be trained by now, or fill in the blanks. There's a million versions of that, and how we can reframe those thoughts to be more accurate and helpful. And then the next piece is really prioritizing play and positives. So we all have a negativity bias. That's just like a human brain thing. And so we tend to dismiss the things that are going just fine or good, right? Or going well. So how can we really highlight the wins and highlight the things that are going well? Not in like a toxic positivity, look on the bright side, ignore the negative stuff, because all of that is very valid, but giving it equal airtime is often the phrase I use to say, okay, there were some rough moments about this day, and there were some moments that were just neutral and fine, and there were a couple of moments that were actually quite good. So being a little bit more mindful about balancing the positives and also prioritizing play. Play was and is the game changer turning point for Dio and I in so many ways. Like I could have an entire podcast conversation on how that was impactful for us. But it changed our relationship. It changed everything. And it's what I go back to over and over and over again with him, especially because I think when we love a challenging dog, sometimes we have to very consciously and purposefully like cultivate those joyful moments. Like sometimes
Yeah.
we have to make them happen. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But we sometimes forget that that joy is always accessible to us, right? We can find ways. It just may not look like we thought it would, essentially, right? It just may not be the thing that we envisioned, these fun romps in the dog park or something like that in the morning, right? So for us, it looks like tug in the backyard. Some people, it looks like personal play. Some people, it just looks like we're snuggling or I'm grooming or whatever. Like there's no wrong way to engage. But for us, it was play. And I think having that sense of lightness and joy and fun and silliness in your relationship with your dog is super healing. So that is an area that I really encourage people to like amp up quite a bit, because we need something to balance the hard stuff
Yes.
out, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to remember that that's possible and sometimes very intentionally do it. So that's that piece. And then the final piece is kind of, I always call it like engage with others. So I've heard a lot of people say like other people are the biggest problem I have when it comes to my dog, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. So we need sometimes those skills to really advocate for our dogs, advocate for ourselves, and also engage with support systems and find people that get it, that can kind of hold us up and just cheer us on and be there to listen, and also engaging with people in a way that we might need to teach them something about our dogs or set some boundaries about our dogs or for ourselves, with the kind of people around us. So those are the areas, really. It's like your regulation, your outlook, making sure we're playing and looking at the wins, and figuring out how to navigate interpersonal human relationships, because our dogs impact those too.
Yeah, and there's like all sorts of different people. Like, of course, there's people that don't understand
Yeah.
reactive dogs or what it might be like for the parents. But again,
Mhm.
there are people that totally understand that viscerally
Yeah.
in their own lives.
Yes.
So to find those people and engage with them, I think is just
Mhm.
creating a nice inner circle that helps with all of the challenging moments. I love this, and in a lot of ways, I wish we had spoken 6 years ago.
Listen, I know this is, first of all, hear that all the time. And second of all, I'm like, yeah, I know. I wish I had it for me. That's why it exists. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you decided to post that day on Facebook because history
me
was
too.
made. So for the people that are just starting to adopt a dog and they start getting this feeling that this dog is not what they expected it to be, how would you mitigate the feelings around this?
Mm. I don't know that I would mitigate the feelings around it. I think that I would say feel the feelings around it, actually, right? Like, I wouldn't say to someone, like, how can we feel better about this? Like, maybe you need a little bit of space to grieve that.
Yeah.
And to say, wow, this isn't going the way that I expected it to go. And I feel conflicted about that, or I feel ambivalent about it, or I'm struggling with it, or something. Because the more that we kind of get honest about that and face that, I feel like the easier it is to kind of move through it to the other side, regardless of what that ends up looking like, right? We can be a lot more honest with ourselves about what we need to help us deal with that situation. So I would actually say turn into that a little bit. Look at that honestly and know that it's okay that you're feeling maybe a little bit conflicted about this or unsure. I've talked to lots of people who are like, I absolutely regretted this dog at certain points, and they've kind of come through the other side of that, or it's been a really difficult but good honesty experience to say this dog was not the fit for us, for our family, or we felt like we couldn't meet this dog's needs and all of those things, right? So there's lots of directions that could go, but it has to start with some honesty and some turning towards those feelings, right? And I think you're more willing to then reach out for help, which of course is the next thing that's needed, is like help and support.
Would you say that this is like a form of grieving?
I think so, yes. I do. I think that there is absolutely grief there when you get a dog, you have a vision for the role that that dog will play in your life, and they come in and go, haha, just kidding. And you kind of have to figure that out internally.
They've got different lessons.
They have different plans. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a therapist, so I can't speak from your perspective, but in the rescue space, I see all too often people expect a dog to be one thing.
Mm,
And then unfortunately, when it is not, they go, nope, throw their hands up and go returning the
sure,
dog.
sure.
And dogs are a lifelong commitment. Dogs are family. Rehoming is such a hard topic in
Mm.
general. And I feel like too often people aren't willing to do the work. And I think if you're having an honest conversation and really thinking about it, it's really hard. But I think there's also something to your experience with Dio and our experience with our challenging dogs. At the end of the day, we would never give them back. We love them for who they are, and I think that's such a hard thing. I don't know how to talk about it eloquently, but loving your dogs for who they are, honestly. Or maybe they're
I
not the dogs that you expected, but they're
Yeah,
different and better in other ways.
sure, sure. I mean, you kind of named that as a process, and I think that that's really pretty accurate. I think that there is a process to getting to that point, to saying I love him for who he is, exactly how he is, and I'm not pushing to change him, and I want to actually learn about who he is and what he needs and meet those needs. But I will tell you full honesty, it was a long time before I got there with him. Like a really long time, couple of years. This is why we did the therapy dog test to begin with, because I was not ready to give that dream up, even though, full transparency, I am sure that there were trainers looking at us like, this dog, this is not for this dog. There were signs I didn't know. Part of it was me not knowing things, but there was also part of me probably denying things and being like, with training we can get there and we can do this thing, right? So I held pretty tightly to that for quite some time. Then when Dio finally communicated to me clearly, like in a way that I could not ignore, that that was not the right fit for him, then I had a whole grieving process. And it wasn't just this instant, like, oh, well, he doesn't want to do it, so I accept it. Then I was struggling with that. It was quite the process along the way to kind of get to that point. So now and in the last several years, 100% I feel that way about him. But there was a lot of times where, I was like, yes, I love him and I'm committed to him no matter what. And I'm grieving this. And he's not what I expected. And maybe I should pursue this with a different dog someday. Like, I mean, there was all of that. Um, but yeah, it's so tricky to have the rehoming conversations, because in my experience, and this is truly just mine, I have people come to me for coaching around, should I make this decision? How do I make this decision? Is it right for us? Is it wrong for us? Is it just that I need more support? Like, the whole range. So I've worked with folks who have ultimately ended up making that decision to rehome. I've worked with folks who then realized that they just needed more of a support system and they didn't rehome. And then I've worked with folks where we've talked about it for 6 months and they still couldn't come to like a conclusion for themselves. And so I don't know what ended up happening. So it's such a range of experiences where people come to that point.
I love that you're providing support for that difficult situation. And I know it's not just with rehoming, you also work with people who are struggling with
Mhm.
caregiver burnout and euthanasia. I'd love to talk about that too, because that's a really heavy topic, but it's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
a lot of people out there are experiencing themselves.
Mhm. So caregiver burden, caregiver fatigue, like those sort of experiences, it's well studied in humans taking care of other humans. And it's also fairly well studied in humans taking care of animals with medical complexities, like long-term illnesses and different things like that require a lot of management. And few studies that I've seen, and maybe there are more, but a few that I've seen, very few, like a couple, 2, 3, something like that, that actually talk about caregiver burden and fatigue and that experience specifically, for folks who are caring for animals, dogs mainly, with behavioral challenges, right? Like it's a very specific experience. So not just the medical stuff, because that is sort of more well discussed or looked at, but actually the caregiver burden experience for dogs with behavioral issues. And the response that I got when I posted about that was so overwhelming. It might have been like the most shared reel, or I think it was a carousel that I've ever shared, where I posted about these studies. And I was like, just so you know, you 100% are experiencing something that other people are endorsing with your behaviorally complex dog. So it's very real. They used rating scales that rate caregiver burden and fatigue for human caregivers and sort of adapted them to dog caregiving, and the parallels were there. So just to validate that that is a very real thing. And then when we get into the conversations, the really heartbreaking, hard conversations about behavioral euthanasia, right? That's a whole other layer to that, right? Because there's a decision there to end a being's life based on so many factors that are really hard to look at, are very unsupported in many situations. There's safety concerns to be discussed. It's a really, really challenging thing. And I really wish that everybody who has had to make those choices had like specific support for it somehow.
Yes.
That's very important because even after the decision is made, I think it's not over then. And
Oh,
you
no.
have the lasting feelings maybe of guilt, of sorrow, like
100%.
the grief.
Right. Well, and we would call that disenfranchised grief, right? So disenfranchised grief is a type of grief that's not often recognized. It's not identified, it's not talked about, it's not normalized like other forms of grief, and that is 100% one of those forms of grief. And so when you have complicated disenfranchised grief like that, it amplifies the grief experience because you don't have the support, the connection that typical grief experiences do. Right? So pet loss already is disenfranchised grief, just baseline. And then when you add on something like that, like behavioral euthanasia and those decisions, it's even more isolating and complicated.
I think in a way, these statistics also help pet parents with reactive dogs see things honestly. And I think rather than feeling irked by that statistics, I feel like it's better for me to know these things because then I can confirm that these things are real. Then I can go ahead and look for the resources that can help me, navigate, cope. But I think that's a really powerful thing also to acknowledge and to unveil. And so, for reactive dog parents, are there any things that pet parents with non-reactive dogs can do to help?
Yes.
Because as we talked about, isolated space, both physically and probably mentally and psychologically.
Yeah.
So how can other people support them?
Yeah, this is a lovely question. I love this question because I know that there are lots of folks out there who everyone around them, their dog is fine and their dog can do everything. And so like they don't have people who understand that their dog is not the same as, so the first and biggest thing I think is truly to listen to that reactive dog's parents' experiences, first of all, to not dismiss them or try to solve them either with like the little, oh, have you tried this? Or have you done that? I'm sure they've thought of it or read about it or even looked into it or done it, right? Just listening and validating their experience, not dismissing their experience, and listening to them in what their dog needs. So if a reactive dog parent is like, hey, you can come over, but here's how I need you to enter the house to support Dio, because Dio sometimes has some challenges with people coming over. So I'm coaching people before they come into my house / his house, by the way, to help make him comfortable in that situation. So across the board, listen to them and then do the things that they ask you to do when it comes to their dog, I think would be like the number one thing. And again, to just validate that they're having an experience with their dog that you don't necessarily get unless you've had it, right? But can very much believe that it's real.
This is very helpful. And this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a long time because it really seems like there's a huge disconnect between dog parents that have never experienced reactive dogs and dog parents who have reactive dogs that have to take these extra steps to make sure that their dog is comfortable and they're not going to be put in a position where they feel and need to react. And so thanks for pointing that out. Such a crucial part.
It's a very like if you know experience, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like even on a walk outside, when there are dogs walking around without a leash in areas where there's leash laws enforced.
Yes.
And like my dog can sit and be stationed, but I cannot control your dog from coming over. And like the communication just becomes such a point of stress, I guess. So yeah, these are things that Laura and I talk about a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, but my dog's friendly.
Right.
That's wonderful that your dog is friendly.
Yes. I love that
Please
for you.
respect my space. I'm so happy for you.
I'm so happy for you.
Please respect our space.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
want our dog to like not like potentially have altercations with yours.
Yes.
Like it's
Yep. Yep.
we're
Would be
just trying to get
great.
through the walk, right?
Right. Right.
I think we have to talk about the importance of self-care and compassion for ourselves as the dog handler, guardian, parent. How do you guide people? Why is this so important?
So I think you'll both laugh at this actually. Because we care so deeply about our dogs, therefore we put ourselves on the back burner. Very often, what I find myself doing is encouraging people to take care of themselves alongside the dog care that they're already doing as sort of like an in, right? It's like a way to be like, right? Because it's sometimes hard. It's like parenting for me too, right? Where it's like, well, I'm just gonna do this for the kids versus I deserve this, I need this, like this is time for me, it's important. People can get there, but sometimes it's easier to almost quote unquote convince someone to take care of themselves, like for the sake of their dog or their child or their partner or something else, right? So, although I want all of us to get to the point of prioritizing our self care because we, just as we are, deserve it and need it, sometimes we're not quite there yet. And so I will encourage people to find little bits of the routine that they're already in with their dog and for their dog to kind of like infuse moments of support for themselves. So that's where I start often. What are we already doing in our day that with our dog? Naturally, that we can incorporate some things for us into those moments, even if they're really tiny. Often they are, and that's impactful too.
So, for example, if we're giving them a walk to make
Hmm.
sure that we're stopping and breathing
Yep.
and taking moments for ourselves as well.
Yep. Right. Did you
Such an
give them a treat and you can give yourself one? Like,
Oh,
did you refill their water bowl and wash it out, but like have you drank enough water today yourself? Like
wait, this is
literal,
great.
yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah.
they ate
Like
breakfast. Did you eat
basics.
breakfast?
Did you eat
Oh,
breakfast? Or like did you eat
no.
breakfast at least in a timely manner where it wasn't like 11:30 and then you're like, "Ooh, whoops, I need to like scarf dump something down." Like did you like there's a million ways to do this and I find it to be quite fun actually to like go through people's day with their dogs and like point out all of the spaces that they could meet some of their own needs in those moments. Um that they're not doing or not thinking of, right? Because it's so dog centered and dog focused. And that's fine. Like we are responsible for them. We should be caring for them. Like I am not saying to like elevate one of you over the other, but we can actually infuse this more than we realize. And I think sometimes we have this resistance to like the self-care tasks because it feels like another extra thing we have to do, like another thing on our to-do list. And if we make it something that's part of what we're already doing, for them, it's a little more, I don't know, impactful
Manageable.
sometimes. Yeah, it's a little more approachable maybe sometimes. So,
Excellent strategy.
I'm gonna use that.
I
Okay,
love
because I'm
this.
totally guilty. I fed the dogs breakfast. I haven't had breakfast yet myself. So,
yep,
yep, definitely gonna take your
right.
your recommendation.
Yeah.
So, Jess, you've just relaunched your virtual course, Coping with Canines. Can you share a little bit more about that program and how people can work with you?
Yes. So, to revisit the moment earlier when I talked about the very first thing I ever offered coming off of that talk, coping with canines was that. And it's been kind of on a hiatus since then. And now I've really infused everything that I've been learning and building along the way into this relaunch. So I'm really, really excited about it. It is a course that goes through that framework that I described, right? So each week has lessons and activities and sort of exercises that you do based on those four areas that I named in the COPE framework before. And then we really talk about how can you apply these things to the specific challenges you have in life with your dog. So again, whether it's the coping skill stuff or the mindset stuff or the advocacy and setting boundaries or communicating with others, whatever it is, learning these four areas and finding ways to really kind of amp up your skill set in each of them. It kind of comes along with some group and community support, which is really important. So we've got live calls and a discussion board and just different kind of pieces that you can connect with others and with me as you learn these different areas. So I'm really, really proud of it. I'm really excited about it. And I hope it grows and I think it's going to evolve even further from here now that it's back.
Thank you for offering it because I know the people need it like desperately. I cannot stress how amazing this was.
Thank
I've
you.
learned so much, and I think above all, like I feel incredibly seen, which is a rare experience as a reactive dog mom. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge and your expertise with us. For our followers, where is the best place they can find you so they can learn more and work with you?
Yeah, so most active on Instagram at Handlers and Humans, and I have the most up-to-date stuff and offerings on my website, handlersandhumans.com. You can contact me there or Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jess. It was so great to
Thank you,
talk to
guys.
you. We could have talked to you for so much longer. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. Stay tuned for the next episode of MythBarkers.